Athlete, activist, icon, the greatest. Former heavyweight champion Muhammad Ali was all of those things. From his childhood in the segregated South to his final fight with Parkinson's disease, Muhammad Ali never backed down. Banned from boxing during his prime because he refused to fight in Vietnam, he became a symbol of the anti-war movement and defender of civil rights. As the greatest, he was a boxer of undeniable talent and courage, and in the ring, only Ali could float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. But what was Ali like at home, as a father and a husband? The answers can be found in the new book, At Home with Muhammad Ali, a memoir of love, loss, and forgiveness, written by his third youngest child, Hana Ali, and based on 80 hours of voice recordings that a dad left for his daughter. Hana, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So this is really an amazing collection of stories that you were able to tell about your father. And first, I just want to ask you, what was your inspiration to do this book?
Oh my gosh, I had a few. So there was the situation with my father being, I always say that he belonged to the world, and I know that people love him, and they're always sharing so many stories about him and asking a lot of questions. A question that we get the most is, what was he like at home? What was he like as a father? You know, was he really that boastful and braggadocious? And, you know, so that I wanted to share that side of my father with the world. I wanted to share a lot of the stuff that I was learning as I was listening to the audio recordings that he gave me, that he made in the 70s. I learned a lot from those. So I wanted to share that information. I wanted to share my mother's story and their relationship and my relationship with my father.
And so while this is a book, so obviously we aren't going to hear audio recordings from
Right.
it, but there are transcripts in there.
Right.
But what I thought was so interesting was that well, maybe not interesting, of course, it would fit with the character, that he had the foresight to make some of these audio recordings, that he thought that, you know, it's important to make sure that some of these are preserved for time.
Yeah, see, my father, people don't realize this because how would they know, but his greatest, in his mind, his greatest accomplishment was being a father. He loved being a father. He used to always say he's the daddy to the world, you know, so he just didn't want to be our father. He wanted to be the world's father, but he actually, he was a homebody. He loved being at home. He could sit in his office for hours at a time and be happy on the telephone talking. And he thought that these little fleeting moments that we take for granted were so beautiful and they touched him. And he wanted to preserve that. So it's funny because he knows that though about himself. He's telling me constantly through the tapes and telling us all, you're going to be so glad I thought of this. Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so history conscious. And oh, it's so good that I know to think about this and prepare for the future. And we all wish we had tapes when we were young. I wish I had tapes of myself when we were young. So I'm doing this because I love you, and I want, you know, the life is so beautiful and life is so short, and he just wanted to capture those moments that were going to pass.
I do want to take a moment for our audience to be able to hear one of them, and this is such a precious moment. It's you and your dad singing, This is dedicated to the one I love.
Oh yes, I love this one.
Go on, let's sing, huh? Time for my singing lesson. Ready?
Yeah.
This is dedicated to the one I love. Each night before you go to bed,
My baby.
So one of the things that I find so interesting is that oftentimes what little the public knows, particularly about a sports figure, is what we read through the sports press. And was it important for you to make sure that this was a chance to actually show the human being behind in some ways, the man that your father was, but also somewhat of the character that he was playing for the press?
Yes, because my father, you know, he's always been outgoing, and he was really great at marketing. He knew how to market himself and sell tickets, and that was a large part of what he did. He was also trying to promote Black love, you know, self-pride, saying, I am the greatest. But he was also very humble. Mm-hmm. So what people don't know is up until his last days, he would just, you know, do people still remember me? You know, he was excited to know he was still making news. And I said, Daddy, are you kidding me? People, do they remember you? Yes, they remember you. And it was genuine. Mm-hmm. So he knew that he was great, but he also he never took it for granted. And he was also very humbled by it. And he needed people's love and attention like he needed air to breathe. And he gave that love right back, a tenfold, you know. So our door was always opened. It was a normal occurrence to come home and find homeless families there. It was a normal occurrence for him to pick them up and put them in the back of the car. We were eating, and he saw someone being refused service. He brought them in, and they'd eat with us, you know. And so I'm talking about homeless people that are sleeping on the streets and hadn't had a bath in like God knows how long. And he never made a face at them. He would hug them, you know. So, wow. I mean, I know this is like graphic, but even when I was a little girl, he made me feel so loved. I mean, I would be 5 or 6 years old, pee in the bed, and he would lay right down next to me, give me kisses, like, Daddy, I peed. And he wouldn't get up, you know, he just keep laying there hugging me.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. So, I mean,
Yeah,
you
no.
felt like you felt so loved. So, I mean, there was never a time where he would send you away or put you out. And I was an annoying little girl. So some of those tapes, you know, I'm begging him, he's on the phone talking about freeing hostages in Tehran. I want some toffee, Daddy. He's like, please shut up, please be quiet. And, Hannah, please be quiet. And you have my housekeeper or the governess chiming in, Janita, hey, Mohammed, you want me to come get Hannah and get her out of there? And let me know if she's in your way. Okay, I'll let you know. Doesn't call her to come get me. I just got finished disturbing him and he's still just, give me some toffee, Daddy. Hannah, shut up, I'm on the phone. So he never sent me away. So I had that feeling and the tapes validated it. It's a feeling that I had. So now I had the evidence. Like, that's why I knew it. I knew that feeling was something.
And that was one of the things that, because
Yeah.
so much of the book, it feels almost like going with you through an old family photo album or something. And usually, even when there's some distance for any family member, when you look back at some of those photos, there's, you know, the memories of this time and this place and, you know, the people that your parents were as they grew as adults. I'm wondering, what was it, I mean, aside from the great toffee
Right.
story, but was there anything else that really stood out to you that you were just like, I almost completely forgot about that?
Yes. So things that I learned too and didn't even know about. Like I never saw my parents arguing, and I don't remember. I completely blocked out the, you know, moving and the last nights at the house, all of that. I was 10 years old, so I should have some memory of it. I just remember my psychologist at the time, who I was sent to go see because I was struggling with worrying about my father so much. Telling me that, how do you feel about your parents' divorce? And I just blinked out after that. So my mother would tell me that later, you know, we came to her, we'd ask her, me and Layla, well, you both like movies, you both like pickles, you know, why can't you get along or be together? There's no memory of them arguing. So they just, you know, my mother grew out of my father and I think wanted to get out on her own. She met him when she was 18, you know, so she just was coming into her own and she lived a long life with him and the infidelities, and even though they were good friends. So we discovered the letters that he wrote to her in 2012 or 13, and she never saw them. So I learned about that, and then also, as I was coming home with all these newspaper clippings and remembering little bits of history, I was learning more, and some things were inaccurately recorded and reported, like it usually happens.
Oh, yeah.
So I would go to my mom and I talked it through. So it sort of, it was born on its own as I was writing it, and I was learning as I was actually writing it, trying to share this story with everyone. So it was very overwhelming, and I had to figure out how to tell these three stories cohesively and in a way that would make people interested, you know, and still not to forget to include me in a memoir that's supposed to be about, you know, personal family. So it was a huge accomplishment for myself. I consider it my greatest accomplishment. I don't know how I got through it, you guys. Like, I really don't know how I did this.
Well, no, but that's something really, really important, I think, because frequently, you know, especially if a child of a celebrity who wants to maintain that celebrity's aura or
Right.
their, you know, their legend, et cetera, maybe there's some things that are still in the house that we're going to keep to ourselves, is how a lot of people, I think, would approach it. But
Right, no.
you spoke about everything.
I did. It's funny because if there's secrets that I'm not exposing, they're just not mine to tell. It's nothing that would actually make my father look bad. It's stuff that would, if they knew, he would look a lot better. But they're, you know, and I address that sometimes. Like, you know, some of these aren't mine to tell, but they're not really about my dad per se. It's him protecting other people. So Daddy lived his life like an open book. You know, even when he was with my mother, he was married, so he didn't hide her. There's nothing that the world will ever really find out about him that he didn't already show to the world in that regard. But I think just how we are at home and around the house and the struggles he was dealing with and the worries and the concerns he had, he was a human being like anyone else, and he wasn't afraid to share it or show it. He would cry, you know, and not be embarrassed by it. He didn't boo-hoo, but, you know, tears would fall.
Yeah.
He would see a homeless family, he would cry, you'd see a tear, and I'd look around and say, oh, Daddy's crying, there must be something around that made him sad or made him happy. And he didn't run, and, you know, a lot of men are afraid to show their emotions, and I always thought that true strength is being able to own it and express it and not, you know, to be comfortable with all your emotions. And that's how my father was. So he was very affectionate, very open with everything, his life, his feelings. And in the book, I tried to show that side of him because, you know, he was struggling with a lot. If he should come back and fight Larry Holmes at a time when he just retired, he knew something wasn't right with his health, but he couldn't put his finger on it, you know. They thought he had Parkinson's syndrome when it was really the disease, you know, so he was fighting his last fights, even Spinks fights, he had Parkinson's. So people think, oh, he's just older and mature, and he just spoke so quickly and so fast that when he starts slowing down, it looked like he was just talking at a regular speed, but really he was slowing down. And then it got to the point to where you couldn't deny it, you know? So
Yeah.
even me as a little girl, I knew, like I'd see him stumble. I'd find him sleeping on the couch or sofa outside on the front porch when we came home. And in the morning, woke up in the morning because he didn't want to disturb anyone and ring the doorbell if he lost his keys. So Daddy would just sleep on the sofa outside. It's like, he had this weird thing with not waking people. I mean, if someone was taking a nap, you know, it could be a stranger. We could be waiting for a flight in the private room, and some stranger is asleep on the sofa, and he'll tell us to shh if he sees that someone's trying to rest. So he had this thing about not disturbing people about sleeping and sharing his food. Like if he was eating, it doesn't matter who you are, he would just start handing you fruit from his plate, you know? So when we used to go eating in restaurants, he would get up when he could still walk around, or I'd help him, and he would have pre-signed autographs, and he'd just start passing them off with a toothpick in one inside of his mouth, and just, here you go, going table to table, passing out. Thank you, Muhammad Ali, thank you. He didn't even wait. Daddy was so down to earth. It's like there was no way you can't just share him with the world that he always belonged to and just gave himself to fully, you know? So it was, yeah, I share a lot of stuff. Even some things that will probably shock people in there that are a little personal, but I thought, you know, my dad lived his life like an open book. Everyone, the world was family to him. He loved people.
You know, I think that's a wonderful note to leave it on, because that, I think, encapsulates really what the story was. I want to thank you so much for taking the time
Thank
to
you for
join
having
us.
me.
This was really such a great book.
Thank you.
And it's such, again, a different look at a man that we all think that we know.
Thank you.